Episode number 23 of Making the Case. Why most people lie to themselves. Let's get it. Hey, welcome back to Making the Case. Your host, Dr. Jacob Isom, educator, author, speaker, entrepreneur, a little bit of everything. Hey, we back at it with another episode. Sorry that it took longer than I expected to drop another episode. Life be lifing sometimes. But hey, we back at it. So I promise to do better in the future. Okay. So today's episode, why do people lie to themselves? All right. Now, excuse me. For those of you that watch all the way to the end, or at least get to the end of the video, right? I have a quote that is actually my quote. I didn't copy this from anywhere. That I say the worst thing you could do is lie to yourself. Okay. And I give you a little genesis to where this started. But before I give you the genesis of it, we had to go over our two channel norms, right? One, we attack points and not people. And two, we don't do all the cussing and derogatory stuff. We're professional over here, all right? We're an edutainment channel. We like to educate as well as entertain, but we can entertain without doing all that messy stuff, all right? So let me get back into the story, okay? So I work with kids, been working with kids for a very long time. But I notice a lot of time kids, it's difficult for kids to take accountability. Not that it's not difficult for adults to take accountability, because it definitely is. But for kids in particular, it's hard for them to admit when they're wrong. Or a lot of times I catch them in a lie or something of that nature, right? So it kind of naturally, the phrase kind of naturally came to me. It was like, man, like the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. And so that's kind of how that started. And so I got the topic idea, of course, from that premise of that concept. All right. Because one thing that I do notice, and of course, we're getting into my opening statement here. One thing that I do notice is that a lot of people will literally try to convince themselves that they're either something that they're not, or that they shouldn't feel the way that they do, or that they feel like they deserve something or they're worth something. Like you hear women say that a lot, right? I deserve and I'm worth. Now, in order to be deserving of something, you have to be worthy of it, right? But to be worthy of it, you would have to put in the work, and you will have to, and the work comes with your behavior, right? So how you carry yourself day in and day out, that's what makes you worthy. That's what makes you deserving. See, a lot of time we think just because we human beings, or we're a male or a female, or that we related to somebody, that we just supposed to get something. That's not how it works. Okay. So in order to be deserving or worthy of something, you have to carry yourself. You have to be deserving of it in the sense that, okay, this is the work that I put in. This is how I carry myself day in and day out. So a lot of times we will lie to ourselves in order to make ourselves feel better. We will lie to ourselves in order to control the pain that we're going through. That's a reason why a lot of times people use drugs and do drugs, right? To numb themselves. That's the same thing when it comes to lying, right? Really, we're trying to numb ourselves to the reality that we have. So a lot of people cannot accept the reality that they're in. And so they'll lie to themselves. They'll deceive themselves. They'll fool themselves in order to make them feel better. Okay. So the idea, the premise, the topic, the concept for today's episode is, why do we lie to ourselves? So I have three pieces of evidence that I want to show you guys from a psychological standpoint, right? To why we do lie to ourselves so often, and kind of some of the reasons behind why we do lie to ourselves. Okay. And of course, we know some people lie to themselves more than others, right? We got different types of lies. So, um, we're going to talk about it a little bit of everything in this episode. Okay. So, go get your popcorn, go get your Mountain Dew, your Sprite, whatever it is that you drink, because I know I know you don't drink alcohol, right? Okay. Don't lie to yourself, right? So get whatever you need to get, because we about to get into it. All right. Without further ado, let's get into my first piece of evidence. So for evidence number one, what we're gonna touch on is, well, why do people lie to themselves? We have to define, and I'm not going to define what lying is, right? But we will define a synonym of lying, which is deception, right? Because it's essentially what we're doing. We're either deceiving other people or we're deceiving ourselves, which of course I feel like it's the worst thing you could do is deceive yourself. If you literally are looking yourself in the mirror and are willing to see a whole different reality than what you see, there might be bigger issues than you think, right? It's one thing to do it for other people, which we do quite often, but it's another thing to do it to yourself. So, what we're going to do with this first piece of evidence, we're going to go over an article from Psychology Today, just literally titled Deception, right? So, we're going to define it and we're going to talk about some other thing when it comes to deception, all right? So, let's get into it. So, deception. Deception refers to the act, big or small, cruel or kind, of encouraging people to believe information that is not true. Lying is a common form of deception, stating something known to be untrue with the intent to deceive. All right. So it says either big or small, cruel or kind. We know that people lie intentionally, and sometimes they lie so much they don't realize when they're lying. All right. While most people are generally honest, I don't know about that. Even those who subscribe to honesty engage in deception sometimes. Studies show that the average person lies several times a day. I would say quite often, right? Some of those lies are big. I've never cheated on you. But more often, they're a little white lie. Their dress looks fine. Deployed to avoid an uncomfortable situation or spar someone else feeling. I think we tell those little white lies all the time, right? Even something as simple, I think about this a lot. Something as simple as when someone asks you how you doing, and you know you're not fine, right? But you be like, I'm good. All right. You're lying to yourself then. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to them. But you do it out of convenience, right? Because you don't want people to feel sad for you and stuff like that. So I get it, but it's still deception. Trust is the bedrock of social life at all levels, from romance and parenting to national government. Deception always undermines it because truth is so essential to the human enterprise, which relies on a shared view of reality. The default assumption most people have is that others are truthful in their communication and dealing. Most cultures have powerful social sanctions against lying. So there is a social thing, but the only difference is there's not really legal ramifications to lying. Well, if you go on into court and you do it on the stand, of course there's legal ramifications, right? But for the most part, you can get away with lying without really suffering dire outcomes. And that's the reason why I think so many people do lie, because it's like you it's hard to tell when people are lying. But I think they brought up a good point when it says it's so essential to the human compromise as far as telling the truth so that we can all understand we're sharing the same reality, right? So that's why it's important to tell the truth, because when you lie, you create a whole nother reality, different than mine. Excuse me. So that's why telling the truth is important. I think even bigger than, the saying that as far as like the best thing to do is tell the truth, right? Yeah, I guess for the most part, right? But we've got so used to lying that it just, it's become our norm. The many forms of deception. There are sins of commission and sins of omission. Omitting information and concealing the truth are considered lies when they are done with the intent to deceive. In addition to statements that are false, deception encompasses statements that misrepresent or distort facts, as well as the withholding of information. People can lie through outright statements or by strategic silence, right? So omitting some is technically deception, is technically lying. I know a lot of time we like to think it's not, right? We like to say, well, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. Well, you didn't tell me intentionally because you know how it would affect me. Okay. What kind of lies do people tell? People may deliberately create false information or fabricate a story, but most often, sheer invention is not the soul of lying. Rather, people deceive by omitting information, denying the truth, or exaggerating information. That's another big one. People exaggerating things. Or they might agree with others when in fact they don't in order to preserve a relationship. That is huge, right? We'll go along to get along. Self-serving lies, on the other hand, help liars get what they want, make them look better, or spare them the blame or embarrassment. How do I lie to myself? Deception isn't always an outward facing act. There's also the lies people tell themselves for reasons ranging from maintenance of self esteem to serious delusions beyond their control. While lying to oneself is generally perceived as harmful, some experts argue that certain kinds of self deception, like believing one can accomplish a different goal, even if evidence exists to the contrary, can have a positive effect on overall well-being. So, although it might have a positive effect on how you feel, I believe it's damaging in the long run. It's two examples I want to give you. One, women that say they are a 10, or women when they know they're not, or when women be like thick when they're overweight. I'm sorry, it's just the reality, right? Or when kids be like, I want to go to the NFL and they ride the bench. And then the parents will play along in their delusion and be like, yeah, baby, we're going to come to every one of your games, even though you don't play in them. Because we don't want to tell our kids that, hey, really, you're not good at this. Maybe you want to pick another route. We don't want to tell them the truth. We'll rather them be delusional and we'll lie to them just like they're lying to themselves. Okay. But I think this causes more damage in our society than we really think. We think it's harmless, okay? Even when it comes to like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and stuff like that, we think those lies are harmless, in which they very may well be, right? But we're still creating a pattern and a habit of lying, which is typically what we do in our society. Okay. Let's keep reading a little bit more. I don't want to read that. How do I know when I'm lying to myself? Most people are not aware of the ways they fool themselves, but psychologists have identified many signals of self-deception. Outside's emotional reaction to present situation, behavior that is out of step with who you claim or aim to be can be indicators that we believe things about ourselves that are false or fail to believe things that are true. Excuse me. I don't think that we don't understand and know when we lying to ourselves. I just think that, like the article is kind of saying, that we know it makes us feel good when we lie to ourselves. Like when we keep a lie going, like whether it's we want somebody else to believe that we're something that we're not, or we want to feel good about something we're not. There's there's a reason why you're doing it, right? So people are aware of, they're very intentional when it comes to lying to themselves. So I don't believe that they don't know. Why people engage in deception? According to one expert, lies are like wishes. Often what is said are things people wish were true. A large body of research identified three major reasons why people lie: to get something they want, of course; so-called instrumental reasons, like, oh, this is why I lied, like I lied because you couldn't handle it. You hear that a lot from me, and I'm just gonna be honest. Okay. To protect or promote themselves and to harm others. Okay. I think the protection part and the reason part, the two biggest reasons. Avoiding punishment may be the main motivation for both children and adults. Absolutely. Where everyone lies a little, it appears that only a small percentage of people do most of the lying. There's evidence that prolific liars share the personality trait of Machiavellianism. They are manipulative and exploitative of others. The trait is closely related to psychopathy. Is honesty always the best policy? Intentions matter when it comes to behavior. It's often a deciding factor in the law, and there are times when lies can help others or shield them from harm. Sometimes lies are told to prevent difficult conversations, such as those involving critical feedback, and they may appear protective, but they can ultimately disadvantage the recipient by depriving him of useful information that can promote positive change. Is deception always harmful? Expert differ on the topic. Some believe that even white lies told with the aim of protecting others or smooth and social relationships are damaging because they deny people the experience of reality that they could be used to improve their lives. Lies are damage to relationship because they block intimacy. I agree there. Lies are considered harmful because they destroy trust, the bedrock of society, the belief that others are dependable and intend no harm. And that's the end of the article. What I would say, which this was a pretty good article from Psychology Today, but what I would say is I believe we understand this when it comes to social media, when it comes to the news, when it comes to any outlet that we see on TV. I will even include the radio, right? I believe most people understand that everything that is portrayed and put out there is not the truth, which makes it more difficult because now you got to decipher what is real and what is not. Who is telling the truth? Who is disingenuous? And that makes it tough for everybody, right? And that's why I encourage people to do your own research, right? The reason why, and I've never told my audience this, the reason why I choose three pieces of evidence because you need at least three things to cross-examine whether something is real or not, right? At least three. At least three things. That's why I choose three pieces of evidence. So, like, you can't just take things for face value and believe it, right? Particularly not nowadays, all right? You have to vet, okay, if you don't want to be misinformed, because unfortunately the people that's out there that's spewing information, they want you to be misinformed so they can shape your reality. Okay, it just is what it is. All right, so that's piece of evidence number one. We're gonna get into evidence. All right, so for evidence number two, actually it's very similar to evidence number one. It's also from Psychology Today. They do actually have some pretty good work. And we're still talking about deception, right? But this one goes a little bit in a different direction. And the title of it, Deception, here's how we fool others and ourselves. We rarely lie to people because we have other ways of convincing them. Okay. So we're going to see what this article gets into, but it just lends more and more credence to the fact that deceiving ourselves as well as other is kind of I hate to say it, it's a bedrock, it's a staple in our culture, in our society. Like, I don't think we realize how much or how often we really do deceive other people and how often we even tell ourselves lies. Okay. So let's get into it. So, really, I wanted to actually bring awareness to, we might be living an alternate reality, one reality that we think we may be living while we're really living in another one. So let's get into it. There is a large body of research in psychology regarding how and why people deceive one another. Much of this focuses on lying, that is, telling things to others and sometimes ourselves that aren't true. So, understood, deception is a matter of self reporting. We can either relay our real understandings to people or we can do the opposite, right? So, I think that's a huge part of what vulnerability is, right? Vulnerability is about honesty. It's about telling the truth and you not caring how the other person will perceive it. Okay. Like, that's why people are afraid of vulnerability because they're afraid of the truth. They would rather lie to themselves and be in that sweet spot and to be comfortable with themselves. Because really, people lie to themselves because they want to be comfortable with who they are. Tell me I'm lying. I know I ain't. All of us tell untruths, at least in small ways. Whatever the circumstance, we compliment a friend on the meal they prepared for us. We tell our child they played well at the concert of sports, even when the results would indicate otherwise. So, yeah, I was telling you, as we see it, their self-esteem and our relationship to them is much more important than compulsive frankness on our part. For similar reasons, we try to spare them some of the gory details of our life history, including previous relationship. We expect them to be considerate of us in the same way. So, of course, that goes back to the last article when it was saying the reason why people lie is to not hurt somebody's feelings, right? Like, you literally have a reason for why you did not tell them the truth. Okay. So, and it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because on one hand, yes, you spared them, but on the other hand, you're not being honest with them. And we talk about honesty so much in our society when we lie just as much as we honest, if not more. All right. That said, we try to avoid more serious kinds of misreporting. The past may be past, but we shouldn't invent significant information about who we have been and what we have done. Nor should we lie about the things we're doing currently. Excuse me. People who won't reveal their doings to their loved ones, perhaps skipping work to go shopping or bar hopping, are asking for trouble, which of course we know people do, right? People be like, or people will get out of work early, but they won't tell their spouse or their significant other, and they'll go so they can get some alone time. Now, is that lying? No, it's just admitting, it's just not being forthright about what you're doing, which over time can compound and create issues in a relationship. Absolutely. Being caught in a lie is a bad circumstance. Being judged a liar in a more general sense is much worse. If someone lies to us and we know it, what else are they lying about? What are they hiding? Profoundly, we wonder if we can trust them to be the person they say they are. Lying and consequently being caught at it sets off a complicated set of justifications. When these prove fruitless, apologies and atonements are in order. What becomes clear is that we have lost faith before someone whose good opinions, excuse me, we care about. In the doghouse, we want to get out. Yes. So absolutely. Like, so when we get caught in a lie, now we gotta come up with justification and reasons why we did lie when we know good and well why we lied. And really, we're really not sorry about it. At least most of us are not sorry about it because we intentionally do it. We know good and well why we was lying. But we do it because once again, it makes that other person feel better, right? If I tell you I'm sorry about lying, even though I'm gonna do it every single day for the rest of my life, it just is what it is. The most unrepentant souls and surely the hardest to deal with are those who believe their own lies. Indeed, if I believe some widely acknowledged falsehood, think of denials of the Holocaust, climate change, and fair elections, and I lying when I spread those mistruths, don't I have a right to my opinion? Putatively, saying what I think subjective reality trumps the factual reality of publicly verified information. Mental calculation of this type reaches an extreme state in those suffering from narcissism, borderline personality disorder, and even deeper forms of psychological disturbance. Information control as impression management. I'm interested in a line as I just described it, that is, as a kind of false reporting of what we really think or really did. However, most of us are clever enough not to get caught in outright lies. Instead, we manage information. I think that's a great way to put it, or a good point that he's making. That was the theme when I noticed sociologist Irving Goffman. In a series of books, Goffman explained how people try to manage their impressions others have of them. Their purpose in doing so is to maintain an idealized public identity, essentially a preferred way of being seen and deferred to. Wow. I'd never thought about, well, I thought about it from the aspect of that, yes, we lie in order to, like, we would exaggerate stories to make us look better than what really happened, right? But people may be unaware of why they're lying because they really want to appear a certain way. They want to be favorable and likable. Some of the orders we know is happening on the scale, right? Because to be honest with you, I like telling you the truth and being vulnerable and saying what it is that I think and I feel. So I'm not misrepresented. And so you can feel however you want to feel about me, right? Because I love the skin that I'm in, you know. But that's just me. Other people, they want to be liked, you know. It's a popularity contest. We know that. All right. Verbal statements, what we say about ourselves, other people, in the situation we're in, are one way of supporting that identity. And that light, Goffman acknowledged that people sometimes lie to achieve their ends, exposed by a lie. The identified plummets and must be rebuilt. However, Goffman's main concern was other, more subtle ways we massage, modify, or even misrepresent accounts. As he saw it, people dramatize their lives much like actors in a play. They play many roles, essentially versions of themselves. They adapt those roles to different audiences. They use all manner of stagecraft. Unlike professional actors, they typically play themselves differently also. Their performances are not confined to the occasion at hand. Instead, they are judged to be indicators of their overall identity and character. And pretending to be someone something one is not, the job of the state actor is to be held a very bad thing. Now, we all understand that we play different roles, right? It also goes, to code switching, right? We're playing a role. We understand that we act one way in front of our friends, one way in front of our parents, one way in front of coworkers at our job, etc. Right? So this is nothing new, right? But as it relates to like playing, like we're actors, and that's kind of essentially what we're doing, right? We're playing a role, right? And we're playing it to the best of our ability, even though we just playing different parts of who we are, and some are more cognizant of it, while others, are just doing it so that it can be liked. Oh, let's see. Let's go. Yeah, that's all I want to read. I thought it was a pretty good article, especially bringing up like managing information. I never looked at it that way. That, well, people are only go like, we understand that people gonna only tell you what they want you to know about them. It's no different than when you come to getting to know somebody, right? And when we start having a conversation about talking about exes, right? So people are not going to tell you what they did to make the relationship fail, right? They always going to start with, yeah, they was this, they was that, man, they was crazy, like they was taking my money, they was using me, like, but they'll never tell the full story. That's what I'm thinking about when it comes to managing information, right? Like, we're only going to tell you what we want you to know, which is acting, right? Which is also detrimental. And the reason why, if you're not willing to be honest and vulnerable with the person that you quote unquote love and trying to be in a relationship with, like, they're going to fall in love with somebody that is not real because you're not being completely honest. And I think that is the reason why relationships do struggle, because it's like, I need to know all of you. I need to know who you are, because if not, you perpetrating, you faking. All right. Hey, let's move into our last piece of evidence, and I promise you, I will not disappoint with the last one. All right, so we're gonna wrap up with my third piece of evidence on why do we lie to ourselves, with, of course, an article that talk about the many ways we lie to ourselves. Of course, guess what? All three articles from Psychology Today. I'm sorry, like when I was, researching and going over this stuff, like these were just some good articles that, you know, and typically I try to get a variety of platforms on here, but it just kind of happened that way. All right. So we're going to talk about the many different ways that we lie to ourselves. All right. So let's get into it. All right. How honest are you with yourself? Let's see. Everyone is in denial about something. I love how they started off, right? Self deception or lying to yourself is simply a motivated false belief. False belief can satisfy important psychological needs of the individual, confidence in one's abilities. The following are some of the lies we tell ourselves. The first lie we tell ourselves is that ignorance is bliss. Let's hear it. One of the most difficult problems sustaining goals is how to persist in the face of negative feedback. Strategic ignorance can help to achieve persistence. How? Avoid information sources that could demotivate you. For example, someone who says to death do us part during a marriage ceremony need not be aware of the divorce statistics. Right? So being ignorant to it is a way to lie to yourself. Ignorant to new information, current information, what have you. Reality denial. This is what I think a lot of people suffer from. All right. Denial is a psychological defense we all use against external reality to create a false sense of security. Denial can be protective defense in the face of unbearable news, cancer diagnosis. In denial, people say to themselves, this is not happening. For instance, alcoholics says they have no drinking problem, right? I think this is more pervasive than any other way that we can lie to ourselves, right? We literally will ignore reality, right? We do this with dating a whole bunch, right? But like they said, when it comes to like hearing news from the doctor, which I'll be honest with you, that's why a lot of men don't like to go to the doctor, because we don't want the news that something is wrong. So literally, it's a way to lie to ourselves. All right. There, I said it, ladies. Are you happy? All right. Overconfidence. Overconfident individuals think they are blessed. They think they are well liked by others, or that they have come on top. As a bumper sticker state, Jesus love you, but I'm his favorite. For example, 90% of all drinkers, or excuse me, drivers, think they are above average, and 94% of professors at a large university were found to believe that they are better than the average professor. Optimism can have significant health consequences. Psychologist Lawrence Norgin found that among a group of people trying to quit smoking, the ones who gave especially high ratings of their own willpower were most likely to fail. I'm gonna be real with you. I think I'm one of the best teachers that ever step into a classroom. I do honestly believe that. But if you know me and you understand how hard I work, you wouldn't say I was far fetched with believing that. And if you step into my classroom was a fly on the wall, you would definitely believe that. Okay. Now, maybe I'm overconfident. I don't know. Okay. Please, you can tell me if that's the vibe you get from these videos. Okay. Self handicapping. This behavior could be considered the opposite of overconfidence. If a person is uncertain about her true ability and afraid to find out what her true ability is, she might refrain from doing the work that might reveal her as having a low ability. In such a case, a successful performance could be attributed to skill, while unsuccessful performance could be externalized as due to the lack of a good preparation. And really, what I think self handicapping is just fear, right? I think a lot of people are or do not do things because they are afraid of what the outcome may be. Okay. So, 5, how I like myself to be seen, which the last article talked about this. People like to be seen favorably by themselves and by others, but some personality traits that carry a high social value, altruism, and fair mindedness are not directly observable to outsiders. Our actions, however, offer a window into our personality and taste. For example, giving money to a panhandler or change a Facebook profile photo to honor the victim of some new tragedy. So, yes, we're going to try to make ourselves look the best that we can. But in some regards, like some of us don't care and we act a certain way, and we know people are going to demonize us, but some people just don't care, right? So, some people find very freeing and liberating in order to act how they want to. One, because they get monetized for it, right? And two, because they don't have to put on this facade that a lot of people put on. See, a lot of people put on this character in his face, and it's not really them. The phrase, you gotta smile or laugh to keep from crying, it's what a lot of people go through, right? A lot of people are suffering in silence. But when I go out in the public, I can't pretend like everything is all good. I got to put a smile on my face. Unfortunately, it happens, right? 6, cherry picking data. People tend to embrace information that supports their belief and reject information that contradicts them. For instance, people require more information to accept an undesirable idea than they do a desirable one. When it comes to religion, this happens a lot, right? There's a lot of information out there that would go against Christianity, Islam, or whatever religion that you believe in, right? But people just don't want to hear it, right? They want to believe and feel the way that they want to feel, right? Which means reality is being created with leaving a whole bunch of information out, all right? So that's something that we got to think about. Sour grapes. In Aesop's fable, the fox tried hard to get his hands on the tasty vine of grapes, but fails in all his attempt to acquire the grapes, at which point the fox convinced himself that he really didn't want those grapes that badly after all. In the presence of dissonance, awareness of different beliefs, the individual feels psychologically uncomfortable and attempts to reduce it. The motive is to maintain a positive self-image. So you want something, but then you try to act like, it's like when the dude try to holler at the female and she like, nah, I got a boyfriend. Like, I don't want you anyway, you ugly. That happens too, right? It's so much coming out on this episode. It's crazy. Me and others. Psychologists use the term attributions or causes for people explanation of the events in their lives. We tend to attribute our success to our enduring character traits, our failures to unfortunate circumstances. For example, when we say you failed because you did not try hard enough, I failed because I had a headache from staying up all night with my son. An alcoholic may be happy to tell himself he just cannot help it in order to have an excuse for persistence. And that's it. I thought those were great reasons. What was it, 8 of them? Yes. All 8 of them was on the money. Or why we lie to ourselves. Every last one of them. And the thing about it is, most of of those reasons we use on a daily basis. We lie to ourselves all the time. We lie to ourselves, we lie to other people. It's no wonder why our reality is the way it is, based on how much we lie. And after reading those, I know that you can relate. So, but you know what? Save my rant for my closing statement. So let's get into my closing statement. So I thought that this was a very important topic to broach. One, because it absolutely affects every last single one of us. Not only does it not, it just affects us individually, it affects us in groups, it affects our family, it affects our relationships, it affects government, it affects a religion, it affects every institution, right? The idea of us literally telling ourselves fables and tales so that we look better in front of other people or that we feel better about ourselves is problematic for us as a society, as a culture. And we understand that we all do it, right? So it's something that it takes every individual to address in themselves, because there is no law that the government can pass and be like, hey, stop lying to yourself or we're going to put you on probation. Like, something crazy like that, right? We understand it that it's more social and really it's more about self-improvement, right? You have to get to a point as a person where you understand that it's better to be honest with yourself first. It starts there, right? You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest about what you're doing to yourself, whether it's mentally, like physically, emotionally. You have to be honest with yourself, what you're doing. And then that will lend itself to making sure that you're honest with other people, particularly those that you love, right? Because I always say, if you're willing to lie to yourself, it's going to be easy to lie to other people. Very easy. How can you lie to yourself, but then tell other people the truth? It doesn't make no sense. So the reason why we talk about lying a lot, we talk about lying with cheating, we talk about lying when it comes to cheating on the test, we talking about lying when it relates to so many different aspects, is because we're lying to ourselves. No, we're not as big as we think we are. No, you're not as successful as you think you are. No, yes, you need to lose weight. Yes, you need to wake up earlier. Yes, it's a lot of things that you need to do to improve. And that's why it's a self improvement thing. So stop lying to yourself and improve. Be honest with you so that you can be honest with others. We all get irritated when somebody lies to us, but we have to understand we lie to ourselves. So is lying going anywhere? No. Once again, these topics that we go over, that I research on, they're huge topics, right? They're social issues. But one thing that I want to do, I want to bring awareness. Okay. It's about you improving yourself. We need baby steps, right? Maybe with enough people that's improving themselves, we can see a cultural shift. And then we can see something more large scale. But until we start focusing on self improvement as an individual and then within the family and have that accountability, then we're going to keep seeing delusion. We're going to keep seeing our reality that we're living different realities because we're telling different lies to ourselves. All right. Hey, I thought this was a great episode. You let me know in the comments, man. Hey, let's get them subscribers, man. Now, y'all know this is great content, man. We just gonna keep on dropping gems on you. All right. It's just gonna get better and better. But in order to get to the point where we live streaming and we bringing in people, guests and stuff like that, we got to get the subscribers up. You know what I'm saying? Go cop the books, the merchandise, all that stuff. All right. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe. All right. Hit the bell so you know when new videos drop, all that good stuff. All right. As always, I am you are me, love always, love eternal. And what I'm going to say next, the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself? Absolutely. So let's start getting better with that, people. All right. Hey, I think I made that case. All right. Hey, deuce.